Oh, welcome back to MTG Burgeoning, your channel for all things magic. In today's video, we are going to update and upgrade our Morophon the Boundless WUBRG Tribal deck. Thank you for choosing MTG Burgeoning for your Magic the Gathering content. Give us a thumbs up if you enjoyed this video and consider becoming a subscriber. Doing so supports the channel and makes you eligible for our various subscriber rewards series. If you would like to support the channel further, then click the link to our Patreon page in the description below. There, you can join our ongoing Pack Wars series as a 1-month supporter or ongoing member. Or try joining Pack Wars for free by commenting on every MTG Burgeoning video in a month. We strive to offer creative rewards through our various Patreon tiers. So if Pack Wars isn't for you, then something else will be. Links to our content and various subscriber rewards series can be found in the description below. Send us an email, follow us on Twitter, follow us on Instagram. We are your channel for all things magic. What's up, MTG BC? You are the MTG Burgeoning community. Welcome back to another installment of the Up and Up series. Today, we're going to update and upgrade our Morophon the Boundless WUBRG Tribal deck. So let's get right to it and talk about a change at the top. Let me introduce Jensen Carthalion, Druid Exile. It's a 2/2 legendary creature that's human druid for Selesnya colors, and whenever we cast a multicolored spell, we may scry 1. If that spell was all colors, we create a Serra Angel creature token, which is a 4/4 flying angel with vigilance. Jensen also has the ability to pay 5 generic mana into him, tap him to produce WUBRG mana. For a WUBRG specific deck where we're trying to cast WUBRG spells and benefit from WUBRG abilities, Jensen is going to do more for us than Morophon ever could. The writing is on the wall. Jensen is now the general of this WUBRG tribal deck, and Morophon the Boundless is coming out. So, with Morophon the Boundless coming out, we are no longer looking to make this a forced changeling deck. Previously, when we did this WUBRG tribal deck tech for the BCC, we were extolling the virtues of trying to make as many of the 5-color legendary creatures all one tribe so that we can get massive synergy when Morophon the Boundless comes down onto our side of the battlefield, and we can cast all of those 5-color spells for free because of his ability to reduce the mana values of those spells. Well, that is no longer a feature of this deck, and because of it, you're going to see many of the creatures that were included just because of that. They're coming out to yield to more of a WUBRG flavor, not so much because they can't be cast for WUBRG colors, but because they no longer have any synergy to the overall WUBRGness of this deck. You'll see more as this installment continues. The first new card going into the 99 is Jared Carthalion. It's a Planeswalker for WUBRG colors. It comes down with 5 loyalty counters, and we can +1 Jared to create a 3/3 Kavoo with trample that's all colors. We can -3 Jared, and we can choose up to 2 target creatures, and for each of them, we put a number of +1/+1 counters on it equal to the number of colors it is. So if we have 2 creatures on our side of the battlefield, and they're each WUBRG colors, we're going to -3 Jared, and each one of them are going to get 5 +1/+1 counters. That is an extremely powerful Planeswalker ability. And lastly, -6, we will return target multicolored card from our graveyard to our hand. If that card was all colors, we'll draw an additional card from our library, and we'll create 2 treasure tokens. Jared is going to have a lot of synergies with the WUBRG cards that are going to be floating around in the 99, and it's going to replace Maskwood Nexus. Maskwood Nexus was included as part of the forced changeling theme of this deck, and since Morophon is coming out and we're no longer married to that concept, Maskwood Nexus no longer has a place in this WUBRG tribal deck. Next card going in, it is Unite the Coalition. 5 colors and 2 generic mana at instant speed, we pick any of the following 5 modes, and we may choose more than one at a time. So target permanent phases out, target player draws a card, exile target player's graveyard, unite the coalition deals 2 damage to any target, or we destroy target artifact or enchantment. So many relevant modes for this spell, so many options at our disposal, and all for just 2 and WUBRG mana. In a deck that's going to have so much mana acceleration, we should be able to cast Unite the Coalition way ahead of curve. Again, with the Forced Changeling theme coming to an end, it makes replacing Arcane Adaptation that much easier. This was included again, similar to Maskwood Nexus, to help smooth out the tribalness that we needed to make each one of those WUBRG spells free in the presence of Morophon. Well, no longer. All right, the next card going in. It is Two-Headed Hellkite, a 5/5 dragon with Flying Menace and Haste for 1 in WUBRG colors. Do not overlook Flying and Menace. That's double evasion. Not many opponents sitting at the EDH table are going to be able to block this bad boy when we send it into combat, which makes their life total tick down 1/8 of their starting life total when it deals at least 5 points of damage, and whenever it attacks, we draw 2 cards. The double evasion will make sure that we don't lose it to combat outside of any potential spot removal. Two-Headed Dragon going in, and coming out is Scion of the Ur-Dragon. Back when every creature was the same creature because of our Forced Changeling theme, Scion was able to tutor up any of them to become a copy of them on the battlefield, or to fill up our graveyard for a mass recursive spell that would have allowed us to bring all of the creatures of the chosen type right from our graveyard into play and then end up winning the game that way. Well, like we said, that Changeling theme is out, and Scion no longer has a place in the 99 of this build. Next creature going in, it is Primeval Spawn, a 10/10 avatar for 5 in WUBRG colors. It has Vigilance, Trample, and Lifelink. If it would enter the battlefield and it wasn't cast, or no mana was spent to cast it, we exile it instead. It's a very good thing that in the 99 of this build, we have cards like Joda, Archmage Eternal. So when Primeval Spawn leaves the battlefield, we exile the top 10 cards of our library. We may cast any number of spells with total mana value 10 or less from among them without paying their mana costs. So we could just count on this creature getting removed from the battlefield by one of our opponents. They cannot allow a 10/10 Vigilant Trampling Lifelinker roaming around our side of the battlefield. Can you imagine if Jared comes down and throws 5+1/+1 counters on this? Or can you imagine if we bestow Chromanticore onto the Primeval Spawn? It's only a matter of time until this bad boy gets spot removed, and that's where we end up winning. Because if you notice the text, Primeval Spawn does not have to die for its LTB trigger to trigger. All it has to do is leave the battlefield. It could be bounced, it could be exiled, it could be blinked. And if it does die, that'll work too. All of those are options for our opponents. Let's just face it, we're going to be casting spells from the top of our library, and Primeval Spawn is going to let us do that. Primeval Spawn is going to replace Reaper King. That was one of the mass, when these creatures come into play from the graveyard ability and we can just blow up permanent after permanent after permanent. That was a great feature in a Changeling theme, but now Reaper King, without any of your scarecrows with you, you're just a 6/6 trampler, and that's just not going to be enough. Next card going in is a win condition that's going to replace a win condition that we previously had installed when we were operating under the Changeling theme, and that is Mana Cannons, a red enchantment 2 and a red. Whenever we cast a multicolored spell, Mana Cannon will deal X damage to any target, where X is the number of colors that spell is. This is a WUBRG dedicated deck. We're casting 5-color spells like nobody's business. With Mana Cannons on our side of the battlefield, we will dole out 5 points of direct damage any way we want every single time we cast a 5-color spell. Mana Cannons is going to replace General Tazri. Of course, when we had all of our creatures as allies in the Changeling theme of this deck prior, we would pay WUBRG mana and give them +X till end of turn, where X is the number of color among those creatures. So with the ability to generate oodles upon oodles of WUBRG mana, General Tazri was a win condition in this deck from a combat standpoint. Well, now that the Changeling theme is gone, she will yield to Mana Cannons as a new form of winning the game. All right, next up, a wonderful board wipe for this type of build, Iridium Maelstrom. Sorcery speed, WUBRG colors, destroy each creature that isn't all colors. Nearly every creature in this deck is all colors, so Iridium Maelstrom, when it really comes down to it, is just going to act as a Plague Wind. Destroy all creatures your opponents control. Iridium Maelstrom is going to replace Dam. Dam would destroy the entire field without any acknowledgement of regeneration. Now, I don't know how much regeneration works in your meta. It's not huge in mine, of course. So as a way in which to preserve our side of the board, because we have those WUBRG-specific creatures under our control, let's get rid of the mass destruction spell that is Dam, and let's make sure we preserve our creatures by casting Iridium Maelstrom instead. That way, our board stays intact mostly because not every creature in the deck is going to be 5 colors, but there should be very, very few creatures that are 5 colors under our opponent's control. And the next card going in is Okagachi, Vengeful Kami, a 6/6 flying, trampling dragon spirit for 1 in WUBRG colors. Whenever Okagachi, Vengeful Kami deals combat damage to a player, if a player attacked us last turn, we will exile target non-land permanent that player controls. This is a great combat deterrent for our opponents, unless they want to have one of their non-land permanents exiled by Okagachi. Plus, with its 5-color WUBRG identity, it will create a Serra Angel creature token if we cast it while Jensen Carthalion is on our side of the battlefield. We're trying to get as many WUBRG spells as we can that make sense to the WUBRG synergies in this build that can also trigger Jensen. Now, with that in mind, coming out, being replaced by Okagachi, is Bringer of the Red Dawn. Now, this had the nice little quirky WUBRG side casting cost of paying it and getting a 5/5 trampler onto the battlefield, other than paying the 7 and 2 red mana for this Bringer. Unfortunately, this doesn't trigger either of Jensen's abilities. We don't even get to scry 1 because it's just a monocolored creature. Yes, sometimes there is the ability to get one of our opponent's creatures for a turn, which we could do some pretty diabolic and malice-intended things with. However, this isn't going to really work for the WUBRG synergy that we're trying to build in this deck now. Before, it was just about how many different WUBRG things can we do? Well, with Painbow and with Dominaria United, now we're changing gears of this build to make it what more can we do with the WUBRG spells and effects that we have in this deck. And Bringer of the Red Dawn, and as you'll see, the other Bringers as well, can no longer bring it in the 99 of this build. Next up, we just have an 8/8 vanilla creature for WUBRG mana. That's pretty much all. Initially, this was not included because we were trying to get the overall Changeling synergy among all of the different WUBRG creatures, some of which we've already seen come out of the 99, and because it was vanilla, it really didn't have a place. Well, now it may have a place, particularly because of some of the other things that are being put into this deck. So with Fusion Elemental coming in, with its WUBRG synergies, which definitely have synergies with our new Commander Jensen, Bringer of the Blue Dawn is coming out. We may miss those 2 cards that we can draw during the beginning of our upkeep, but again, if we're trying to synergize the if we're trying to synergize the WUBRG theme, this spell is not going to do it. It has absolutely nothing going on with Jensen. Next card going in, the Kami War, a saga going in for 1 in WUBRG colors. When the first lore counter goes on, we exile target non-land permanents an opponent controls. When the second chapter of this story is read, we return up to one other target non-land permanent to its owner's hand, then each opponent discards a card. There's a great deal of disruption there for the investment of 6 mana, but it gets so much better. When the third and final Lord counter goes on, we exile this saga and then we return it to the battlefield transformed into Okagachi Made Manifest. It's a 6/6 flying, trampling dragon spirit. It's also an enchantment creature, so we will have to watch out for any potential spot enchantment removal. Whenever Okagachi Made Manifest attacks, defending player chooses a non-land card in our graveyard. We return that card to our hand, and as a bonus, Okagachi gets +X/+0 till end of turn, where X is the mana value of that card. Since so many of the cards in this build are WUBRG colors, we can think of most likely the floor of a bump to Okagachi's power being at least 5, and sending an 11/6 flying trampler into combat after it exiled a non-land permanent, bounced another permanent, and made each opponent discard a card just for the investment of 6 mana. The Kami War not being in this build prior was a criminal mistake, and it will replace Bringer of the Black Dawn. This may be the toughest one to swallow because it was originally placed in here because of its tutoring effect. We needed as many tutor effects as we could possibly afford so that we can find the Maskwood Nexus or find the Arcane Adaptation so that we can begin to build our Changeling theme. That's now gone. We still have Demonic Tutor and Vampiric Tutor in this build, and plus, Bringer of the Black Dawn is a mono-black creature. It does not synergize with our commander, and it has nothing to do with any of our other WUBRG effects or synergies. So the Bringers are out, and more WUBRG madness is in. Speaking of WUBRG madness, Progenitus is going into the build. It's double WUBRG, it's 10/10, it's protection from everything, and if it goes to the graveyard, we shuffle it into our library instead. This will help with those pesky mill decks that sometimes they creep up out of nowhere, and if you get milled out and have no way in which to have an automatic shuffle effect like Progenitus has, well, you're going to lose that game. Speaking of losing the game, good luck for our opponents trying to manage a 10/10 protection from everything in a build where we should be able to get it onto the battlefield way ahead of curve. Progenitus is going in and is going to replace Sisay, Weatherlight Captain. Now, Sisay is mono-white, so it has no synergy with Jensen's Scry ability or its ability to make Serra Angel creature tokens. It's a 2/2. It gets +1/+1 for each other legendary permanent we control. So yes, we could have a 7/7 with Sisay very, very easily because we have so many WUBRG legends in this build. We can pay WUBRG to search our library for a legendary permanent card with converted mana cost less than Sisay's power and put that card onto the battlefield, and then we shuffle our library. Before, Sisay was a very, very important feature to building our board because she was able to tutor these legendary 5-color creatures from our library onto our side of the battlefield. Now that we are shifting away from the Changeling theme, the number of legendary WUBRG creatures, it has taken quite a hit. As you can see from all of the creatures we've added so far into this build, the only ones that we could realistically get onto our side of the battlefield with Sisay would be Jensen. I'm sorry, Jensen is our commander. I meant to say is Jared, Okagachi, and that's probably going to be it because I don't sense that we're going to have a power big enough to get Progenitus onto our side of the battlefield. And we've already lost so many creatures over here with Reaper King and Scion of the Air Dragon that it just makes Sisay's presence in the deck not as strong as it used to be. So Sisay is going to come out because it's just not doing enough for the overall WUBRG synergy in the build, even though it has a WUBRG ability. All right, next card going in as we're almost done. It is Conqueror's Flail. Here we have an equipment that's going to give equip creature +1/+1 for each color among permanents we control. So we can just see, we can just say this is going to give one of our creatures +5/+5. I mean, we're running a WUBRG specific deck. This is going to get +1/+1 for each of those colors. So equip creature is going to get +5/+5. It only costs 2 to cast and 2 to equip. And when this is attached to a creature, our opponents cannot cast spells during our turn. Very powerful in the right kind of build, and this is the right kind of build. It's going to buff up one of our creatures in a huge way, and it's going to prevent any of our opponents from casting any spells as long as that equipment is attached to one of our creatures. Conqueror's Flail is going in, and it's going to replace Lightning Greaves. Lightning Greaves was originally in here to protect Morophon. As Morophon was so important to our Changeling theme, we needed it on the battlefield protected, as well as a Maskwood Nexus or an Arcane adaptation, so that we could start casting all of our Changelinged synergistic WUBRG creature spells for free, and then just completely combo off. Well, Morophon is no longer in this build, so we no longer need to have singular protection for him. So let's get rid of the Lightning Greaves, which, let's face it, stopped spot removal, and let's instead replace it with Conqueror's Flail, which will act as an even harsher form of protection against our opponents, as well as getting a nice +5/+5 buffering for the creature that it is equipped to. All right, next card going in, Temur Ascendancy. Green, blue, and red creatures we control have haste, and whenever a creature with power 4 or greater ETBs under our control, we may draw a card. Yes, you're definitely right if you've already thought that those Sarah Angel tokens come into play as 4/4s. They will trigger Temur Ascendancy, and we will draw those cards. The haste is very important in this build. We don't want to let our massive, unbelievably wonderful, powerful, any other kind of adjective or adverb you want to throw onto the names of these 5-color creatures. We don't want them sitting around waiting to get removed. That's by sorcery speed. So let's give them haste right away. Let's benefit by drawing a card from them when they come into play with powers 4 or greater. And in so doing, we're going to replace Garruk's Uprising. Now, this is not a shot to Garruk's Uprising. This card is powerful. It gives the evasion of trample. It also has the card draw. It even draws us a card when it ETBs if we have a creature with power 4 or greater. The reason, one, why this is being replaced by Temur Ascendancy is haste. We want our creatures to have haste. We want them to come down, draw us the cards, and get sent into combat right away. Combat really is our #1 win condition in this build. Reason number 2, Garruk's Uprising has no synergy with our commander. Yes, Temur Ascendancy will allow us to scry 1, which could have its benefits in and of itself, but Garruk's Uprising will have absolutely nothing to do with that ability. So we're going to swap out one card drawing for another and give that haste as opposed to trample, and it will help the build overall. 2 cards remain. And it is Rian, Angel of Rebirth, a 5/4 flying angel for 2 and Naya colors. This is going to give other multicolored creatures we control +1/+0. A very modest power boost when we're running 5-color creatures, but still, Rian has an ability that we haven't yet talked about that makes her even more valuable. Whenever another multicolored creature we control dies, we will return it to its owner's hand at the beginning of the next end step. So if we're looking at spot removal or mass removal, if Rian is on our side of the battlefield, when either or both of those scenarios happen, those multicolored creatures, which, let's face it, those WUBRG creatures of ours, are going to our hand instead of the graveyard. Rian is going to come down, and it's going to replace Fist of Suns. Now, I did mention earlier during this Up and Up installment that we do have Jodah, Archmage Eternal, already in the 99 of this build, which mimics exactly what Fist of Suns does. And after forward viewing of the 99 post this installment of the Up and Up series, very few of the spells in this deck cost more than 5 mana. So why would we carry 2 cards that can do the exact same thing? I can understand keeping the one as a flying creature in Jodah, but why keep Fist of Suns? For some kind of outdated redundancy? Well, once again, check out the deck list. Very few of our spells cost more than the 5 mana that we're trying to get with this WUBRG theme. Yes, you're looking down to the left, you see Progenitus, you see the Kami War, you see Okagachi, you see Two-Headed Hellkite, you even see Primeval Spawn. Yeah, they even unite the Coalition. That's the majority of them right there, folks. Right there, and we still have Joda. So we're going to weaken a part of our deck that was built for redundancy that we don't really need anymore as a way in which to strengthen the overall theme by including Rian and her ability to bring those dying multicolored creatures back to our hand. All right, last swap. We got one land going in and one land coming out. City of Brass is going in. It's going to help with our 5 colors. It's going to take 1 point of damage, or we're going to take 1 point of damage every time we tap it, but it will help to fix the mana and make sure we have what we need to cast our WUBRG spells. It's going to replace Path of Ancestry. Now, we don't need the Path of Ancestry anymore because we're no longer operating under that forced changeling theme. So we don't have every single creature type that we'll be able to utilize for its scry ability. So it's going to ETB tapped. Yes, we will get 1 mana of any color, but it does come into play tap, which, you know, for the purposes of tempo, even in a format like EDH, we want to make sure that we can maintain that best we can, because we're already operating under a little bit of a disadvantage by running a 5-color deck. City of Brass will do better for our overall mana fixing than Path of Ancestry, particularly because we are no longer running a creature tribal deck, which we had prior to this Up and Up installment. All right, whew, there we go, MTG BC. The WUBRG Tribal deck, once helmed by Morophon the Boundless, is now being helmed by Jensen Carthalion Druid Exile. Let me know your thoughts about this transition in the comment section below. This is MTG Burgeoning, your channel for all things Magic.